Dr. Rajagopal Chidambaram, who was the scientific advisor to the Prime Minister and earlier chairman of India's Atomic Energy Commission, passed away the other day. He was the only nuclear scientist who participated in the successful nuclear test of India in 1974 as well as in 1998. That made him very special. His contributions to the technological development of India was manifold. He was a man who always measured his words and he never sought publicity. Perhaps that is why he has not got the recognition or popularity that he really deserved. It's only timely and apt that we take a look into the contributions of Dr. Chidambaram. Welcome to Insights. This is Hari Kumar. In 1974, when India conducted the first nuclear explosion, Dr. Raja Ramanna was heading the team. But the young Dr. Chidambaram also played a very key role in the nuclear explosion. I have read that it was this man who named the nuclear explosion, who wrote the catchphrase, peaceful nuclear explosion. That nuclear explosion of India was named Operation Smiling Buddha. Srimati Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India at that time. And actually, the world was stunned when India conducted a nuclear explosion. It was actually following a nuclear test by China in 1962. China had invaded India during that time, and India was under the threat of China, and India actually needed a solid deterrent to prevent such incursions in the coming days. And the nuclear explosion of 1974 did a long way in providing India a nuclear deterrent. But still, India was not a fully nuclear capable country. No country in the world accepted India as a fully nuclear country also. For that, India had to wait long. But the able leadership of Dr. Chidambaram was still there and he got the experience of conducting the first nuclear test also. When Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister of India in 1992 onwards, I think it was in 1994, he gave nod to conduct a nuclear test. The scientists went ahead with the test, with the plan. But unfortunately, the CIA came to know about the test. And they promptly informed the then US President Bill Clinton about it. And he put immense pressure on the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao that Narasimha Rao was forced to call off the nuclear test. That was really a discouragement to the nuclear program of India. By that time, Pakistan had developed a nuclear bomb. Then many countries in the world had nuclear bombs, including North Korea. But India was not able to take the results to the logical conclusion. And so India planned it very secretly when Atal Bihari Vajpayee became Prime Minister in the late 90s. And Vajpayee gave the nod to scientists to go ahead with their nuclear explosion program. And the nuclear test was conducted at Pokhran range where the first nuclear test was held. But at that time, India was very careful. I read that India began the preparations almost 18 months ago after the real test. India conducted several trial runs. India took many precautions. On three fronts, India had a plan. The number one was to prevent the participants of the test from leaking out the data. So including scientists, then supervisors, technicians, and even ordinary workers who were supposed to work at the site. Everybody was put under the careful watch. The credit has to be given to two team leaders. One was Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was then the chairman of DRDO, India's prime defense research and development agency. The second man was Dr. Chidambaram, who was then the chairman of Atomic Energy Commission. And both of them were very cautious. They were known as the Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam was given the name of given the pseudonym Major General Prithviraj, and Dr. Chidambaram was then called Dr. Colonel Nataraj. So it was this way. Everybody had a code name, and they used the code name to address each other in all communique and even outside. They wore military fatigues also. The second precaution that India took was India was very careful in all communications, especially telephonic communications. It was one of the favorite areas of CIA, and CIA used to leak out information from the communications, and India was able to completely, prevent that. Then the third aspect was, India took precautions in blindfolding the US spy satellites. That was one of the toughest actions, but India really succeeded. What helped India was, by then India had developed a network of satellites, and India knew how satellites used to take photos of what is happening on the earth, and earth observant satellites India knew very well. So India took all precautions. For example, all the work was conducted at night time. The second aspect was whenever the remains of whenever India excavated a site for conducting the explosion, the sand was deposited in the same way as sand dunes occur in a desert, because the explosion in the Pokhran range was in Thar desert. All the waste dug up from the earth, the sand dug up from the earth were filled in dunes, and dunes were made in the same way as naturally sand dunes form in the desert in the windward direction. So satellites were not able to spot the sand dunes or what was happening, nor even any special activity was going on at the site. That way, India was able to blind the secret eyes of US spy satellites. And the result was India was able to conduct the nuclear explosion. And the world came to know about that only when India's then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee announced that at a press conference in his office. The United States was actually stunned. They reacted with sanctions against India. But what really surprised and what really hurt the United States was the fact that India was able to hold a nuclear test by blinding the eyes of US satellites. I heard that many of the US congressmen in the opposition, they blamed the government, and they told the government that was one of the costliest failures of CIA in the history of United States. So India was able to successfully conduct the nuclear tests. There were 5 tests. India started the nuclear tests on May 11, 1998. On that day, India conducted 2 tests. And on May 13, India conducted another 3 tests. Sorry, on the first day, India conducted 3 tests, and on the second day, India conducted 2 tests. India said the first 2 tests, where the yield of the test was around 40 kilotons KT, and that was a thermonuclear test. On the second test was actually 2 tests with the yield was less than 1 ton. So that was not even detected by seismographs around the countries. So India was very careful, well planned, and it was held so deep in the earth that the world didn't came to know about it. The credit should go to Dr. Chidambaram and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam for conducting both the tests. India gained the capability to make or build a thermonuclear device by that test. And India has got enough data from all the tests so that the country can use the data to simulate and use that to perfect the technology and make nuclear bombs. Though Dr. Chidambaram was one of the participants of one of the leaders of the test, he never got the popularity that he really deserved. As I said earlier, he was a man who always measured his words. He never wanted to appear in the public. I think that was the reasons why he was trusted by the government. But at the same time, perhaps that might have cost him some popularity also. Who cares? And anyway, this is a time to pay homage to such a wonderful personality, an erudite scientist, and for his leadership qualities. Meet you with another topic next time. Till then, goodbye.